my introduction then. So my name's Seb Ison-Jacques. I've worked in the construction industry for 20 years. I've worked in different sectors. I started fresh out of school. I went into working in supply chain management, did some estimating for a brief time, which developed into quantity surveying. I did that unqualified. I wasn't the best at school, if I'm truthful, but I moved on from that. And then I did QSing for a company where we bought and developed buildings. And I did that for probably around 2 years. And then the company started to hit financial difficulty. That was around 2016, which started to deteriorate my own health and space and my working environment. The difficulty, because I was the quantity surveyor, I was the acting voice on site, people contacting me for payments, which is the truthful, and the money just dried up. And then it left me in a position where I was living in London in an apartment I couldn't really afford, if I was truthful. And then the job hit, and I went into mental health of my own. I had to move back to my parents. I wouldn't say I reached suicidal thoughts, but it was a very dark place. I started battling with alcohol and drug addiction, and then realised I needed to get back out of that sort of thing, and it was very difficult for almost a year, I suppose. With the support of my parents, I managed to go back to university, did my degree, and it was back doing my degree in quantity surveying because, to be honest, I love the sector. I'm going to probably give a bit of a down image on it, which I'm trying not to, but I think the underbelly of it is actually a lot of positivity, a lot of good people out there that want to do some good positive work. So yeah, I was doing my dissertation, which is obviously my final end up piece, my BSc quantity surveying, and I touched on mental health in the construction sector. A lot of my university wasn't too, I don't know, they're a bit skeptical of me doing it, I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't say they were negative towards it, but I think they're a bit like what we do in social sciences and sort of things like that. And I couldn't believe the condition, to be honest. So yeah, so I'll move on a little bit and staying on one slide too much, sorry. I'll kind of change the slide. There we go. But yeah, that's me on the side. So yeah, no. So like I said, did quantity surveying, did my degree, and then I started a dissertation, and I started to discover. I didn't realise. I mean, I'd spent 20 years working in this sector. I'd loved this sector. My dad's worked in this sector, but I didn't realise how bad the condition with the mental health was. I mean, 4 times the average people committing suicide working in the construction sector. Recording 700 people a year, 2021. And I didn't recognise it. If I'm truthful, I didn't recognise the sector that I'd worked in. So that led my own research. So I'm very new to research. I'm not an academic. I'm trying. I do my own private research now. I've started to do this sort of thing in public speaking. So I've only done a few, so I'm a bit fresh at it. But I'm certainly trying. But yeah, so I want to cover these points just during my talk this morning. So like I said, my own research and mental health. The 3 key points that I took from my research, or the 3 feeders of poor mental health. I have a bit of a psychological interest as well, so I was quite interested when I did my research to put a bit of a humanistic approach on it, and obviously did a bit of research into Carl Maslow. That comes from my mother's side. My mum's a psychiatric nurse, so I've got a kind of hybrid of the two, construction and mental health. So it's probably not too surprising I'm doing something like this now. But yeah, then and obviously I developed into what I feel we whisper about rather than shout about physical health, which is a very interesting point, which I'll touch on. And then I want to touch a little bit my own research, and then finally close out with who's making noise and who is positively speaking about mental health in construction. That's right. Okay. I usually start with this when I've done this sort of thing, and these are the 3 things that hit me when I started doing my own research. And these were the sort of percentages. I don't know if anyone wants to chip in and see if they can answer some of these, because at the time I was quite shocked. So I'll try the first one. So we've got trader percentage people in our sector felt uncomfortable about discussing mental health, and I've had suicidal thoughts. I mean, A or B? I don't know if anyone wants to try. Give me a guess.
I'm going to go B, because I think I remember seeing some COV research as well that was saying that level was high, but I would like it to be less.
No, I can see any improvements on that, but you're right. 42% of our trade. And unfortunately, it doesn't get any better. I mean, I've gone too much, but obviously the next one, financial peers are getting paid. from subcontractors, people have actually turned up to site. I want to guess on that.
And you say
it's going to be big, then, isn't it? So it's
unfortunately, yeah. And I know. So I'd act as quantity surveyor, and I'd seen a lot of this. But nearly 7 out of 10 people who are construction not out fear of getting paid, and then obviously I suppose looking back the one, we can all guess what's going to go on for the next one. I suppose the middle management stresses is an interesting one and something I will touch on a little bit. I think when I started my research, it was a lot about subcontractors and a lot about the low skilled workers on site. I don't see that. I'm not completely convinced by that. I think there is a lot more middle management pressures. I think people like quantity surveyors. I can only speak from a quantity surveyor point of view, but that middle management pressure, I think there's no outlet for it. I think it builds and manifests. You know, you get it from the contractors on site. You get it from the contract manager on site. It hits the middle band, and there's no outlet for them. The owners don't want to know. They want to know when it's finished. They've got no interest in how you feel, and I think there's a lack of support in there for the middle management band. But yeah, like I said, I do put the slogan on the bottom. It was in the ONS numbers as well. A fantastic company as well on the tools. They did their own white paper as such. I haven't got the link for it, but I can, readily send it out to people. It's a really good document. There's loads of numbers in there. They're quite eye-opening numbers, but they do exist out there, and they did a lot of independent research around that. But yeah, no, sorry, I always just start with that. I'm just quite intrigued to see what other people see, because obviously I do it to mix a room. So yeah, back to my own research. So when I started my own research, I did my normal literary review, and I discovered there's no one actually in the UK with a focus on constructional research in mental health. I think there's people definitely talking about workplace suicide. I mean, I would say that obviously my research is 2000 to 2004 to 2003. So I'm going to say we are moving. We have made good strides in that. But then obviously I still think we're miles behind worlds like Australia, or places like Australia, where I still think we're a bit slow to react. I know we've got mates in mind who do some fantastic things. I don't want to give an image that people aren't doing. But I get concerned around the actual true research. You're actually finding where the post-vention issues are, preemptive issues of there, the ideation of people, where things come from like that. So I say my research was around. I'd interviewed 12 independent people, and I was able to do semi-structured interviews, and where I actually opened up different sort of questions. I took that from my lit review. So when my literary review obviously feeds the 5 questions, I kind of had a set of 4 or 5 questions, and I was able to interview some interesting people in the UK, and that was fantastic. But I would say I probably weren't prepared for it. I probably wasn't really prepared what I was getting into. I probably naively a bit. Some people were, everyone was fantastic. I can't say they weren't, but I come across some people that had planned their own suicidal issues, and planned their own way outs and how they couldn't deal with it anymore. And I think it became much more than research to me then. I think it was just a dissertation at the time, but it's something even now. I mean, I was going to do further research into it. I'm looking to do more further research into it, and that's obviously what I took a bit more. But like I say, and at the end, I did manage to speak to a lot of people in Mates in Mind, and also Mates in Construction Australia. That again was a fantastic experience for me. But yeah, I touched on earlier. These are my 3 feeders. I mean, there's obviously everyone has their own view on it, but this is what I took from my research. It's what I took from the quality data that I managed to capture. I think these to me, I mean, there's this obvious stigma and discussion, but to me, this is where, where we need to start really understanding what we're creating. I mean, the burnout issue to me, that's. I think we totally underestimate the burnout issue. I mean, we obviously have the macho images and various other things, but to me, the reducing the stress in the middle management has to be a focus. We have to try and get a work-life balance. We don't accept positions where it can just wait. I think we're poorly structured. I think we're poorly understanding of what we're doing sometimes. And I think the job security is built around the fact that people are trying to work harder than the next person. There's a desperation to make sure they're the person getting the promotion, they're the person getting the opportunity. And I think a lot of that builds around the situation, especially with the subcontractors. I think they're poorly treated. I think we don't understand what we're bringing in. You know, these people are working 5 days a week. They're constantly away from their families. And I think their desperation to succeed leads to far too much work. I think and then I'm going to say, and then we build onto the tough guy image, which unfortunately is oh, sorry.
Can we just go back to that, because I feel like it's such a key point about the middle management bit, because that's exactly where my head's been for a long time. And when you speak to some of the site-based workers, yes, I'm not saying they don't have their challenges, they do have their challenges, but from a organizational perspective, they don't necessarily feel the same pressure. You know, their pressures are more personal. They come to work, they can leave their work at work, and they can go back home. But the middle managers is definitely where I think that this huge gap is, and where it just breeds this toxicity, where there's this just normalization that the only way you get promoted and you get to the top is if you're the person that's there at 6 a.m, they're the last one at night, and you're the one that can go above and beyond. And you see it even in the most mature organizations, this just acceptance, and that's what I'm struggling with at the moment, that there's not this recognition of what actually is happening. But I don't know if anyone else wants to draw on that, because it's I'm not seeing
I definitely agree with that, Jenny. Even completely opposite subject in a way, but when we were doing our fatigue research here, the big thing that came out of that was that it's the middle management who are not actually doing any kind of a shift pattern, who are working more than 10 hours a day. There's no good reason for them to work more than 10 hours a day, but they're doing it, and they're staying at their desk the last possible minute.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think if I could just chip in as well, while hopefully Fergus is going to remain quiet while I say this. I think the middle management piece really resonates with me, and certainly, I've been in construction for 20 plus years, and there's a lot that the middle management try to achieve in terms of organizational standards, project delivery, health and safety, etc. But also, what I found traditionally is when a problem arises or there's something needs resolution, it generally lands at middle management's door to resolve the issue as well. And it seems to be almost a catch-all position. And, I can speak from personal experience where I was expected to resolve a problem or come up with a plan to influence the resolution to the satisfaction of regulators or whoever it may be. But actually, I was experiencing the problem. And my boss at the time, who would openly admit to not being the most emotionally intelligent individual going, he said, "Well, this is great. It gives you insight." And I thought, "Oh, I'm not sure he's heard what I've said." So I do think you're right, absolutely right, Seb and Jenny. This catch-all panacea of problem solving is the middle management. Really does need some support.
Absolutely.
Sorry, back to you, Seb. So if we keep doing that, we're talking. We're going to
No.
No.
I'm fine. I do. Yeah. No. It's definitely more an avenue of my research. I say I wouldn't say experience. I've come out of what I do now. I do digital construction, so it's a bit. We're a company called Parametrix in Birmingham, and we do have a different ethos to that. I would defend what we do there. It's very different, but I'd say active construction sites are still very different. There's an expectancy. Certainly, I mean, I remember. Again, I don't want to drift off too much, but I remember when I'm getting emails over the weekend, and then I'm getting a phone call Monday morning asking how I got on with the emails, and I'm like, am I missing something here? I don't know. But then, like you said, there's a driven and expectancy. But sorry, So and then obviously we're drifting to the tough guy image, which I think is quite well known. But that's all around stigma as well. And I think one of the colleagues spoke about it earlier. The stigma, the discussion. I think it's the allowing people to speak up, and then effectively supporting them when they have. I think that's the fall down still. I think people are willing to talk, and I think we've got better at it. I do believe that. I'm not just saying it. I do believe we've got better at it. I don't think we're good enough at it. But then, like I said, when it drifts into blame culture as well. I think that middle management thing is what you're saying earlier. It kind of ties in with that a bit, because that seems to be the guy that takes the responsibility, or the female that takes the responsibility. It's their issue, their fault. It's always we seem to have an outlet. We have to have an outlet, don't we? We can't have a lessons learned scenario. We have to find a target, and I think that I still do think we are too easy to blame each other rather than actually come together as a collective group and work together a bit more of a bonding.
The client's fault, it's their subcontractor's fault.
Yeah,
the government's fault. Yeah, there's always
someone. I'd love someone just to say, do you know what, I got it wrong.
Yeah,
I learned from that. I won't do it again. Fine, we move on. And I think when you do that, but I still think, and like I say, I think we have a lack of responsibility and roles in certain areas as well. And I think understanding what people are actually doing is also a part of that. I'll keep getting a delay. I'm trying. And now, so this is just a brief overview. I'm conscious of time, obviously. But this is obviously what I found. These came out. These are the data I was managed to capture. Obviously, I won't go on to all of them, but they're probably not surprising to most people. Unfortunately, I think it's sort of confirmed based on what we're seeing. Again, it's we are got better. I mean, one that I like to touch on is the Australian one, really, because I do worry where our UK research comes from. I know mates of mine do get basic funding, but I think we need to get a support network for the self-employed. I think there's no real outlet of support either. I think it's almost like, okay, well, you get paid and off you go, and I think it's trying to create some sort of bond that we can actually look after people a lot better and understand that we do need to look after individuals on these sites. I think a lot of it is still work in progress. I think I could say a few things, but I think until we actually adapt and actually look after these people, I think we're always going to potentially go around in circles. But yeah, no, sorry. I just want to say there's a few more points on there. Speaking about individual management, which we already touched on, I suppose, and major drug issues. Again, I think we touched on a little bit. I think the bullying culture is still there. I think there's still a bullying culture. Whether that comes from a male-dominated environment, I'm not too sure. I think we're still. Yeah, I've spoken at an event before recently last month. Whether women get the right opportunities still, I don't know. It was an interesting afternoon, I'll be honest with you. And from a male point of view, I thought it was quite interesting. I think we are trying to get women into construction. I think we are getting it again. We are developing that better. But yeah, no, so that's just a brief review of my findings from that. I am lagging. I'm trying. But yeah, this is one. I'm conscious, but I do find this quite interesting, and I do find it a lot more deeper on it. There's something I've only touched on briefly. I can't say I've done too in depth into it, but it's certainly something I'd be quite interested in going through. We're all searching for self-actualization. That's what we all key want. That's the pillars of what everyone's safety and health is all based around. And I think when I look at things like this, and I've just put some little examples next to it, it do kind of hits me in the face a little bit where we're at around what my points of what I've just touched on a little bit. I think we need to really look at where we develop this and whether it's something we can bring into it more. I mean, I don't want to say I won't go through every single point, but your burnout comes around job security, which is your safety and needs, socialization, all the guys and girls working away. I think working away from the family is a lot more the work tougher than we think, because you're destabilizing someone's stability of all pyramids. I do get interested in how that can actually do breaking in love and relationships. And I do think, like I say, I won't touch on it too in depth, but I think there's something in there as well that we could use potentially to start understanding. I mean, I probably wouldn't be the first person to speak about this sort of thing, and I think it breaks up everything we look for. I don't think we're too demanding as a workforce. I think most people just want the basics of love and care and looking to be protected and looked after. But yeah, no, I do find it quite interesting to look at.
I really like this. I use this sometimes as well, Seb, because we talk with organisations about like developing health and wellbeing strategies and what they want to put in place. They go to these new big shiny things that are all new tech and apps, which is great. Like, well, if you're meeting their basic needs, they've got access to good welfare facilities, they're getting paid regularly. The the guys are got a bit of job security, get those bits right first, and then actually the nice shiny things are things that you can work on. But there's no point doing that if you're not paying people right in the first place. You know, that's what the workers actually really care about, and getting home to their families. And yeah, often that's the fall down.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So on the data, I managed to. You're trying to look from different angles, aren't you? You know, you get qualitative data, we've all done some research, and you try and get some sort of angle to. And I just thought it was quite fascinating that it kind of hit everything I was reading, kind of married up quite nicely to what I was seeing. And I thought we're not actually asking for too much here, really. You know, it's a lot of basics here, really, on that sort of thing. But yeah, this is what hit me a little bit. I think we've made massive big strides in physical health. I think, you know, I've put some numbers on there to go through some of the numbers as we go through it. But we can make a difference. You know, when I wouldn't say just tier one companies, but everyone on the construction site, when we're told how to behave, we do behave in that manner. I think if we act, you know, say, I mean, I remember first starting on construction sites compared to what you go on to now is a completely different animal in the sense. In a positive, you know, it's all good, you know, and a lot's hard at safety visits, people working from heights, people falling from heights. But so we can do it, you know, and I still think we're whispering about it rather than shouting about it a little bit about it. I think when we're told we have to look after people, we will do better. And I think, again, a lot of my research is still say past, and we are making changes. But like I said, just for an example, in 94, 95, you know, 100 construction workers die of workplace accidents. By 2015, we've halved it, you know. So we can do it. We can do better. You know, I don't want to say it's simple. It's not a simple process. We are dealing with mental more than physical. I do get it's a lot more complicated. You know, I'm not a mental health expert. Again, like I said, I'm an advocate of constructional health. I'm not an expert in research into it. I'm learning. That's one of the reasons I'm doing things like this as well. I'm more than open to talk to people. I'm open to get out there a bit more. But yeah, like I said, and then obviously the 700 cases of suicide in a single year. Even 10 years after we bring in an Equality Act, we're still recording. I think you touched on earlier. We're still recording these numbers. I'm fascinated to find out new numbers. I'm looking to try and develop some sort of numbers and create my own data systems. But yeah, no, like I said, and probably the last point really. I mean, if there's an actual fatal accident on site, I just wonder how long these sites are closed for now. Yeah, I think if we record someone maybe in the workforce, you know, is taking their life in the evening, that site continues. But I think we've got to be worried about the postvention of people and people after that. So you can't just tell people, you know, that carries on and we all work on, and it all almost, I won't say it didn't happen, that sounds a bit too blasé, but I think it's the support network round. So we're creating our own sites here. We're creating our own workspaces on these sites, and it's a unique environment. You know, I've seen it. I don't want to sit here and say we just do this, that, and that. It is difficult. We're bringing in different cultures, different environments, and it's interchanging. So to get a stable working place environment, I do get it. You know, that I'm fascinated with. That I haven't got the answers for today. That I'm fascinated to find out how, you know, I'm more, you know, I speak to people from different working sectors. That's part of what I'm doing now. That's what I'm looking to develop into. That's more my future research, which I suppose I'll move on to.
But Seb, I think that the thing about that as well, just, you know, you talk about what if there was a fatal accident, like the downtime, the investigation, the understanding, you know, the support is one thing, but I don't know, I don't want to bring up the whole, you know, should suicide be read or reportable. I think there's obviously reasons why that wouldn't work, but equally, as an organisation, when would they look at that suicide and say, what could we have done? What could we have learned from that? We could have done better, that we can improve and ensure that we've done that, you know, continuous improvement cycle. And as you say, it's just like, might have been personal factors, but there could have been some opportunities to have, you know, changed the outcome of that. And again, yeah, organisations will put it in. It's not my area to deal with, Box, and there could be more that could be done. And it's not about pointing blame and saying, yes, it was our fault, but what could we have done better is, you know, a different attitude to it than just yeah.
But do you think that's a shift in culture then, isn't it? Because then obviously what I touched on earlier about blame culture. we're easier to blame people when you actually just collectively take responsibility for it.
Well, even like stress cases where people there isn't a suicide and people have gone off with stress.
Yeah, of course.
Even the mature organisations will look at that person as an isolated incident, like a HR investigation. But if they've got 20 people that have experienced a similar thing, where is that kind of collective viewpoint from an organisational perspective, and saying how can we learn? And I think I'm a big fan of 45,003 very much for these reasons, because it helps organisations to think differently about the continuous improvement cycle. It's not just about looking at things in isolation. I don't know.
Totally agree. Totally agree. So one of my final points really is my work, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be on this, Jenny. I am because I'm learning, I'm trying. It's very new to me, like I said earlier. So to speak to as many people as create a network as such as possible. I'm currently doing an MSc in digital construction and design at university. And my dissertation for that is going to be around cross-sectional comparisons of how they deal with suicide, and it's a big task. I know, I'm not naive to think that. I'm fascinated out, and I've started looking into it. Started looking to health and social care, how they deal with things. It's still very early stages, if I'm truthful, but I'm fascinated how other sections deal with it, because I touched on earlier, we do have a unique workspace environment on these sites, which is difficult to cross compare, and I do understand that, and I wish I had the answer to understand it a bit better. But it's not, I'm already looking into like health and social care, for example, like nurses, and their rates aren't, their rates are high as well, 2 or 3% above the average, 2 or 3 more likely to be suicide. They do have doctor issues, but they have the same amount of stresses, do they not? I don't know. Does the burnouts? Their hours are just as, if not longer. They're unstructured hours, aren't they? I mean, okay, well, I know we touched on most of us do unstructured hours, or most have come across unstructured hours, but their workspaces are 12 hours, 10-hour shifts, excessive, in a unique environment as well. So I don't know, but that's all right. I digress a little bit.
There's probably a few nurses on the call now that will be.
I'd be fascinated. Yeah, I would.
Give me their experiences of how little. I mean, I've been in the NHS for a long time, so I'm hoping things are I was there, but I'd still imagine it's not moved on that much.
And yeah, no, and I suppose the obvious famous AI. Like I said, my course is around digital construction, so I'm interested to see. I've started to read some cases in China about they've been assessing students in China and see if they can detect early signs of ideation, or sort of pre-suicidal thoughts. It's still very early on. I get caught, and I think we've talked about this before. I think we've shared a few emails on it. I get caught with technology, whether that's really going to be the true answer to what we're going to be looking at. But I don't want to cancel it out. I don't want to look at it. And then so obviously, again, more around investigation around demographics. Probably touched on that a little bit in post-vention as well. And probably a little bit of final thing, I need help in it. So if anyone, my first time on doing this, and I will be back, I will come back. I'm looking to try and do more of this sort of thing. But yeah, advice and help would be fantastic.
There are some widgets out there, Seb. We get involved with a project where, in terms of mental health, they look at the face, they scan the face, and also there's activities around describing a picture and reading out paragraphs. However, a lot of them are still going through their clinical validation. And then the issue that you've got, which I think you were touching on, is it's okay identifying that somebody is struggling around mental health and may be close to suicidal thoughts, but what interventions can you put in place afterwards? Because it's like tearing off the plaster and then not offering them anything at the end of it. Do you know what I mean? It's like clinical, but it's I'm fascinated about the AI and the technology moving forward, because I think it's easy for somebody, if they aren't happy to open up, they can camouflage their feelings, not to have those discussions. And those are the actual individuals that you do want to engage with, so you're actually reaching them early enough. But it's all, I mean, it's a huge topic, isn't it?
I'm going to say, I don't want, I know. it's a bit like I talk about cross-sectional comparisons, and these sectors are massive, you know. And it's like it's a lot of, you know. I'm not afraid of work. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do something because, like I said earlier, you know, this started out as a little dissertation at university. I can't walk away from it. You know, I just can't. I won't allow myself to walk away from it. I don't do this for any financial gain interest. I'm more fascinated to see where the outcomes can lie to it, and what we can do about it. And like I say, yeah, my course is around digital construction, so I hear a lot of AI, and I get it. Yeah, it's a good. It's two letters with a lot of meaning, but you know, I don't know. There's got to be something out there, though. I'd love to hear people's input and see what their own view. And I think there's definitely got to be something out there that we can potentially use in the future. But there's also, but then it's also the interactions. I do get caught because, you know, it's all about interaction, isn't it? I talk about stigma, and we talk about not opening up. Is it still all about just talking to the person next to you? Maybe that is. Maybe that, you know, it sounds like a simple solution to a complex problem, but maybe that still is the answer. But yeah.
What's your thoughts, though, Seb, on the whole lack of collaboration? I feel like you've got a good view of what's happening in lots of different spaces with lots of different companies and organisations, and you know, one of the unique things of our industry is that we all have to work together to get a job done. You don't have one organisation really that does everything from start to finish, and you know, I've heard, you know, particularly like LinkedIn chats about, you know, why aren't we coming together on this? Why is it still lots of people trying to do different things, and lots of charity organisations that aren't working together as well? I know Angie just put her hand up as well, so I'll
No, it's okay. I was just going to say, so really good presentation, by the way. But I was just going to say, half of my company is Australian. They were based and set up in Australia. So obviously we do some cross work with them. Yeah. And I know they are working really hard around this topic, but it was quite interesting about one of your SMEs that said, you know, we don't live in the UK, and they're right. It's a completely different culture. It's heavily unionised in Australia. Even down to the weather. The weather is different now, affects people's mood and things like that. So you know, how it works is completely different. So it's the lack of research in the UK is a real issue, I think.
It's unbelievable.
Something that has to be addressed.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, you know, I'll go on about figures and numbers, but there's some great people doing workplace suicide. But actually, when you speak to them, they go, "Oh, we don't do anything in construction." I'm not. Do you know anyone? Not really. And every single SME I spoke to in Australia, I can guarantee you, told me the same thing. No, not really. No one really contacts us, but they're open. You know this better than I do. They're open. They're like, great. You know, all you get. Come on. You know, come over. Come and talk to us. There's nothing closed off about it. I still get messages now from some of how you getting on, what you do. You know, if they are massively open to it, and maybe that's half of how they've become more successful about it. I think, like Jenny was asking, we are still independently working over here. Whether you can get an individual body to control or take responsibility for that, I suppose that's a government thing. Is that going to ever truly happen over here? I'd love to see it. I'd love to see some sort of single organisation, certainly to pick up responsibility for everyone. I think we're still very fragmented. I struggle to get an answer to it without being without being too blunt, really. I think you
did it yourself, didn't you, around that matrix culture and kind of individuals actually recognising what they're struggling with, and then being able to, you know, bring it forward and get that support that they need. And that is that's a societal issue as well. Yeah.
That's not, so I think that's very important.
Sorry, sorry. I was like, Andy, like, obviously we're in Australia, they've got the legislation now. Do you get any insight to how that is benefiting anything over in?
We don't really, because obviously we do work on some similar policies and stuff, things like that. But when it comes to health and well-being, it tends to be quite separate. So my job role doesn't exist in Australia. They have paramedics waiting on site for accidents. It's a very kind of different way that it's managed. So we do get some things and we do share some things when it comes to mental health, but it's nothing that is, oh, well, what are you doing? Is this working? And I think that's because we do recognise it is a very different country and therefore different culture.
Yeah, interesting. Mel's got a hand up as well. Mel.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that there's a lot of focus at the moment. A lot of people talk about, oh, well, why is it that in construction we're worried so much about suicides and this, that, and the other. And when you're looking at the numbers, because I question the numbers a lot, you know, that we get out of things. Where do we get the new 700 figure from? Nobody's telling you where that comes from. But then when you actually look at the basis of what this is based on, if you look at the numbers of people who have taken their own lives in the UK and how the trend of that, and then if you look at the trends of the people within that, so it's higher amongst men under 50, and then you look at the fact that it's higher amongst people who have low paying jobs, it's higher amongst people who have less job security. It's actually not surprising that we could work out that it's going to happen, because by default we work in an industry where there is low pay, there is low job security, it is predominantly male. So, you know, we are a reflection of the whole of the UK, if you like, and we have to sort of look at how we can do that as an industry. We have to look at how we can change things like pay, things like job security as an industry for people, because that's the only way to move people out of that bracket, you know. Or the other way is to focus on how do we make that part of our society, males under 50, if you like, which is the biggest part, how do we help them with their mental health in general? What do we do for them? One of the things I think that you spoke about before is really interesting is and it's a big topic at the moment, how do we think about masculinity? You know, and how does that manifest itself, and how can we change the way that we look at that? You know, that's an interesting topic. But also, how do we focus people away from, whenever we talk about mental health, we always talk about the far end of it. We always talk about poor mental health or suicide or whatever. We need to really refocus people back on the opposite side of mental health, which is about positive mental health. Do we spend as much time talking to people about how do you make yourself mentally healthy? This is what you can do to make yourself mentally healthy, as we do about these are the problems in mental health. I don't think we do. I think we need to also refocus our conversation. Sorry.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah, I completely agree. And actually, Nick, that was on the last session. Do you know? Have you come across Nick O'Shea, Seb?
I haven't. No.
It's worth reaching out to, because he kind of did a day in the life of a construction manager and what his life was like, and his background. He's got his own podcast around his own alcohol and drug addiction.
Yeah.
And he's probably similar to you. He's not a polished person that's kind of selling products to the industry, but wants to make a difference. But he's looking at that whole individual approach, and how do you take responsibility for, you know, the things that are going to make you more mentally healthy.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds
fun. Yeah. So it's worth reaching out to him at some point as well. He's got some
absolutely
insights.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. No, I've taken it down. Yeah. I'll close on this if I can do. I don't know if people have seen this. I'm getting there. Are people familiar with this? Have we got?
I've seen some of it, but yeah, go explain.
Missed that. Sorry, missed that.
Yeah, do an explanation. I think some of us might have heard of it. I've heard bits of it, but I've seen it on social media, but not really understood the full understanding.
Yeah, so this was done by On the Tools, and this was to highlight the 700 people in average that we've lost in the last 10 years, or every year in the last 10 years. So what they did, they went to 10 places or 10 cities across the country and started to put these signs up all in one day, all in the same morning. And I thought it was really fascinating. I didn't know anything about it. Very much like most people, I kind of picked it up on social media, and I think the reaction to it is quite. For me, I get a mixed response to it. Some people are like, yeah, well, we knew that. And, you know, and I think, well, no, actually, I think there's quite a bigger message behind this sort of thing. They put QR codes on the helmets. And I think the whole project 7,000 again is based around the 700 people. But to me, I thought it was quite impactful, and I think if we can, they're looking to do more things like that. And I don't know, just to me, like I say, I won't go on too much, but I thought at the time when I saw this sort of thing, like I said, it was highlighting like City got Cardiff and various other places, and yeah, Birmingham, Manchester, and I said London, and I thought, and I always kind of finish on this sort of thing, just a bit of an interesting feedback, what people thought and if they've heard about it, and then they obviously kind of got some statistical data behind it. So it's sort of like what could have built with the people we lost. And then they're kind of looking at these sort of things. So this is the sort of numbers over the last 10 years we could, with the people that we've lost in construction. There's always the potential that we, this sort of avenue and this sort of outlet, what we could have created with the people we probably haven't supported enough like that. And like I say, my research is developing, so I'm in that kind of cross stage on that. So I'd love, but I'm looking for more support, and so I'd just like to close out on that if I can do. And like I said, I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful on that, and I'd love to make more contact with more people. So yeah, like I said, to me, the project 7,000 I see is all beyond. There's construction support, obviously, which we know of as well. They're doing some fantastic things. So there's people out there. It's a lot more noisier. I mean, when I started this in 2023, 24, there was nothing. You go on LinkedIn now. It has to be positive, though. We have to keep this. That we are looking to make. Like they said, sorry, I didn't catch you. I do apologise. We need to get to the start of it, but start to manifest a bit more positivity around it. I don't want to go out there and be the harbinger of doom and this is the industry, because it's not. It saved me in that sense. Like I touched on earlier, when I first started, this has given me a career, and I love it. I speak nothing but positivity about it. I know I'm going back on a little bit, but I just think I think like so if we get into the early stages, we can be a lot more prevention, get a bit more prevention in there. Like I say. And that's it for me, really. But like I say, I'm open to. But thank you again.
No, thank you, Seb, and I really hope that you get some really deeper insights looking at it from, I think, someone independent looking at lots of different things that are happening and able to feed back to the industry and on solutions rather than just being about the numbers. I think is where the gap is, and hopefully you can start taking that forward, and I'm sure anyone on the call will be willing to offer any kind of support if we could do. But has anyone got any questions for Seb or any other reflections on some of the stuff that Seb has shared? I think we're all getting close to lunchtime, Seb. So we've had a good old chat before, and yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to reach out to you, I'm sure we'll make sure your details are available. And I know you're quite good on LinkedIn, Seb, so you're worth connecting with.
I'm trying.
No,
try and make some noise.
Yeah, no, and definitely, I think bringing people together is the opportunity. So, brilliant, everyone. Thanks so much. So next time, Valerie's got her hand up. Go on, Val.
Sorry. Just the last thought. Thanks, Seb, for a really insightful talk. I was just thinking about the Health in Construction Leadership Group. Is anybody on there? Or this is a group that sort of divided itself into three, looking at three different topics. One of them was mental health and how do we move things forward, and they were working with mates in mind, I believe. And I thought they were developing some or doing some research or putting collaborative groups together to put some of those missing pieces together, basically. So if anybody on this group is within that group,
I am.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. We have been same as Seb. We have been looking at what researchers are out there, because the basis of the group, we looked around. There's an awful lot of groups looking at mental health in construction. So we looked around to see what other people are doing and thought, let's look at the basis. Let's look at the research. What research is out there? So I know that also Joanna is on the group as well. So what we've started off by looking at what research is out there and looking at where the best places for us as a group to intervene would be. But we're just at the kind of very beginning of it at the moment.
Yeah, I think I joined one of the meetings, and the conversation was very much about, well, how do you fit in with, how they fit in with the other groups that, yeah. And I know Teresa that comes here sometimes, she's on the CIOB groups, and I don't really know where that's going, but we'll try and see if we can get some more clarity and share, and maybe Mel can give an update on HCLG at some point in the future when they've got a bit more direction. Brilliant. So the next meeting is on Thursday, 22nd. Andre is going to be talking about halves. I know he's done some presentations for BOHS. So Andre, you've got 1 minute. Do you want to do a quick pitch to your next meeting? Then we can.
Yeah. Yeah. Go. Thanks. No. I've been working on this for 8 years officially, and about 10 in total. So yeah, it's just my journey, how I've came through university doing mechanical engineering, how I found out about halves, and I've seen some horrible things out there, and that determined me to take some action and bring the latest technology to occupational health in a way that's never been done before. I have a patent on this. I'm part of the BSI committee for standardization as well. And I just want to share all of the knowledge and experience that I've gathered in the last 8 to 10 years in this space. And I'm going to share a lot of practical advice on easy, free control measures that you can just implement today based on the knowledge and data that we've gathered since we launched the product in 2022.
Brilliant. Great pitch, Andre, and within time, so that's brilliant. We look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. So thank you, everyone. Have a happy Easter, and we will see you in May.
Thank you. Happy Easter.
Thanks. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.